Well, that was gross. The Minnesota Wild suffer their first loss under John Hines, 2-0 at the hands of the Vancouver Canucks. And hey, third pairing defenseman, I think it's time we see other people. Let's break it all down in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? The Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 2-0 to the Vancouver Canucks, and the 4-game winning streak is over. Back to the drawing board. And I'm mostly kidding, but it was a game in which the Wild kind of fell back into some of those bad habits that got them into such a bad start to the season. Coach Hines talked about it after the game, in which he mentioned that Vancouver did a good job of really pinning the Wild on their own end and forcing the Wild into positions to try to force plays into the neutral zone, which led to turnovers and led to Vancouver being able to do what the Wild had done so well at the beginning of the game. And no scoring to really break down for the Wild because they didn't score. Casey DeSmith improved to 5-0-0 in his career against the Minnesota Wild. The Wild dominated the first 16 minutes of this game. Vancouver had two shot attempts through the first 16 minutes. One of them was an actual shot on goal. The other was just a shot attempt. And after that moment, Vancouver was able to just completely flip things into their favor. They got the first goal of the game, which is just so classic Minnesota Wild to do all of that good through the first 3 quarters of the first period and still find a way to be down going into the second. The Wild had a ton of opportunities in that first period. They just couldn't get one to go. And I think if they are able to get one in that first period, things probably go a little better. But they just could never recapture the momentum. Vancouver pretty much dominated the second. The Wild had moments here and there in the third, but it just was one of those runaway boulders that the Wild just were not able to grab as this game went along. And look, Vancouver's a good team. They haven't been playing great recently, but I feel like this was one that the Wild kind of let slip away. And just getting back into some of those old habits of turning the puck over, that third pairing existing, because, oh boy, that was an adventure. And that second goal of the game was 100% attributed to the John Merrill saucer pass right to Vancouver. Is he working for the opponents at this point? Because it seems like this stuff just continues to happen. And I think we're at the point where it's moved from it's probably not a great idea to have those guys together on a pairing to you can't play them. You can't, especially on the road, because guess what? Teams are going to try to get that matchup lined up every single time that you put them out there. And at one point, Michael Russo tweeted it out, and I'm actually kind of keeping an eye on things so that I can get maybe a better sense of just how bad it was. But Russo tweeting out that at one point, the shot attempts with John Merrill on the ice were 14-3 in favor of the Vancouver Canucks. That's not just bad, because it's not like he's playing a ton of minutes when he's out there on the ice. Merrill played 12 minutes in this game. And in 12 minutes, you're giving up a shot attempt, over a shot attempt a minute. just by existing, just by being out there on the ice. And I'm sure the numbers were worse as the game went on. I just know in looking at some of the advanced stats for the Merrill Goligoski pairing, the shot attempts while they were both on the ice was 9-4 in favor of the opponents. And so that was in 8 minutes, 26 seconds. So in 8 minutes, 26 seconds, Merrill and Goligoski gave up 9 shot attempts against. Merrill and Middleton were on the ice for 57 seconds, and that resulted in 5 shots against. So there's your 14 for John Merrill in those 2 instances. Like, people are just licking their chops when that third pairing is out there on the ice. And I don't think there's any way you can go back to it for tomorrow's game against Edmonton. Dakota Mermis is going to have to draw in for somebody. And then I think you just have to pray that Zach Bogosian is ready to come back in. Bogosian is very much a third pairing defenseman. It's not great, but he is a marked improvement over both John Merrill and Alex Goligoski. Like, he is a sizable step above what those 2 guys bring to the table. Now, moving off of that, before I blow a gasket, we did see some of the tactical stuff that we've been hoping for down the stretch, because as the Wild were down the stretch desperately trying to get something going to be able to get momentum for the get on the board goal and the potential tying goal late in the period, and that the Kaprizov-Zuccarello-Rossi combination, not their best performance here tonight. And I saw Russo tweet it, and I knew what the reaction was going to be. He tweeted that Ryan Hartman was back on the top line, and I was like, we've gone back to it. It's taken 4 games, and we finally got back to it. But that was for one faceoff. And then it was Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello. So John Hines at the end of the game was face-off chasing with that trio, trying to get somebody to win a face-off to give them an opportunity in the offensive zone to try to muster up a shot on net. And so we saw that as one of those little tactical things that were going on. But look, if we look at the minutes distribution in this game, I think it paints a different story than what we have seen through the first 4 games. But honestly, it's not surprising considering that the Wild were chasing the entire night. You look at Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime. They both had 8 minutes, 46 seconds for Dewar, 43 for Duhaime. You had Ryan Hartman with 12 minutes, 42 seconds. You had Gaudreau with 13 minutes, 48 seconds. Maroon with 13:41. Foligno with 14:40. Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov over 20 minutes tonight. Zuccarello at 19:41. And Rossi at 16:44. That top line was playing. They were playing more minutes down the stretch to try to get shots on net. And so when this team is ahead, it's easier to evenly distribute the minutes. When they trail, you want to try to get those opportunities in. So the minute distribution was the first time we've seen it really shift one way or the other. And so I'm not going to get concerned as of yet, because first major adversity that the team has had to face since John Hines took over. 26 minutes for Brock Faber, 24 minutes, 14 seconds for Brodin, Spurgeon at 23:56, Middleton at 19:24. John Merrill at 12 minutes, 1 second, and Alex Goligoski at 10 minutes and 40 seconds. They have to do something to just have that third pairing not be what they currently are. It's like when I'll make the adage because I tweeted this out. It's like you open a fortune cookie that says, hey, fortune and prosperity are in your immediate future. And you're like, okay, sweet. Awesome. I like to hear the sounds of that. But then it tells you that your good luck, your lucky numbers are 33 and 4. And you're like, pain. Yeah, I'm not going to get extremely worked up about this game because, again, I don't think anybody expected that this team was going to run the table under John Hines. And so I don't think there is any need to sound the alarm bells at this point, because now we get an opportunity to see how this team bounces back on the second night of a back-to-back against the Edmonton Oilers. We get to see how they handle adversity and shots not going in, shots not going their way, falling back into some of those old habits. We get to see now how things play out and how this team tries to bounce back after with the exception of the first 16 minutes, mostly subpar game here against the Vancouver Canucks. So all in all, this is probably not a bad thing that this game started after 9:00, because if you didn't stay up to see it, you probably didn't miss a ton. So we'll just kind of leave that as it is. I want to get to the comments here tonight because even though it is a absurdly late hour, we still have a healthy comment section. And so we'll get to the comments and we'll try to up the vibe here a little bit as we get ready for the game against the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow night. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 2-0 to the Vancouver Canucks, and we roll through tonight's Locked On Wild postcast as we continue after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life. But can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. That is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than one of my family members or friends or one of my kids got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication that they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. Folks, the Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It has never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Again, jasemedical.com. Use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Today's episode also brought to you by FanDuel. And as the weather gets colder, although if you're in Minnesota, it has not as of yet, and we like that. The offers continue to stay hot with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is incredibly easy to use, and if you hit your $5 moneyline bet, you can use the bonus bets for things like spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. If you think for a second that Justin Jefferson isn't going to hit his receiving prop now that he is expected back in the lineup on Sunday, you're crazy. He is going to absolutely torch the Las Vegas Raiders. So if you've got some bonus bets or just some other money that you want to put down, take the over on receiving yards for Justin Jefferson. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 2-0 to the Vancouver Canucks. We are trying to up the vibe here after just one of those not as great performances here by the Minnesota Wild. 2-0 loss to the Vancouver Canucks. Let's hit the comment section here this evening, and we'll start with Jeremy. Not seeing Mermis in the lineup made me angry. Not seeing Mermis in the lineup made me nearly bite through my coffee mug as I was enjoying some tea to watch this game. I don't think at this point, I'm going to say this as of 12:51 a.m. on December 8th, I think you have to pull one or both out of the lineup. And I don't think in good faith you can go back to either one of them the rest of the season unless you suffer an injury or somebody is out of the lineup to where you absolutely have to. I don't think you can continue to just see these types of results with these two guys and expect that it's going to change or expect that you can actively hide them from opponents on the road. I mean, yes, you did beat the Calgary Flames, and I remember sitting on this after the postcast of that game and saying, hey, look, the third pairing didn't really hurt us. But at the end of the day, the greatest trick that the devil ever played was convincing us for a second that this third pairing was anything other than a catastrophe. And we just went right back into that realm here in tonight's game. Again, that turnover, keeping Vancouver in the offensive zone and leading to the second goal, which was the backbreaker. And again, it's a laundry list of instances in which there have been things like this that have happened that have led to goals that you just can't have. You just can't give up that next goal unless you're able to get onto the scoreboard to at least make it 1-1 at that point. Yeah, so just miserable. And I'm frankly, I've had enough. I'm tired of it. Get him out of the lineup. That's all I'm asking. I don't ask for much. I'm a simple man with simple tastes, simple entertainments. Play video games on Friday nights, glass of wine every now and again, a cold beverage, especially after nights like tonight. I don't have sophisticated tastes, but one thing that I cannot stand for is continued garbage play by the third pairing. So Locked On Wild is officially calling for the end of the Merrill Goligoski experience on both fronts. Get him out of here. Now, to continue this, Jeremy throwing in, so we put Merrill on waivers for the purpose of assignment, right? So as far as I understand it, the process is you put Merrill on waivers, he clears because nobody's going to claim him. And so since it's a one-way contract, you can stash some of the cap in the minors, but only 1.15 million of that too, which again, that is enough room for you to be able to actually call players up that don't fall between a specific salary range. But honestly, that's worth it enough. Even if it was a mil, even if it was 1 million of two, that's still plenty. That's still worth doing it because I don't understand for the life of me what you think you're getting from John Merrill. He has size. You have Jake Middleton, you have Zach Bogosian, who both have more size and actually use it. I don't know that I've seen him use his size at any point, and it's a lot of just staring off into some portion of the ice, waiting too long to make a play, and then ending up in a turnover. I still, to this day, from Sunday's game against Chicago, I still am frankly amazed that the pass from Merrill through the crease didn't hit Fleury in the back of the skates and go into the net for an own goal. I still am amazed that we didn't have that happen. And those are the only guys that are making those plays. So please, just get him out of here. Like it's beyond tiring to talk about. And it just needs to be it needs to be the end. Merrill and Goligoski are painful to watch. It needs to be the end of the experience in which we have with them. Now, as we move through, Swiffer T Wet Jet Mop brings up a good point. The Wild held the Canucks to under 20 shots. Pretty good defensive game if they could have cut out those turnovers. And that's the other thing too, is like this is a high-flying Vancouver offense that saved that second period in which they were really able to kind of do their thing. Like, again, they had 2 shot attempts through the first 16 minutes of the game. And just the Wild just were not able to, they weren't able to keep to that style of play. And it burned them. It burned them that they ended up getting to where they were pinned in the defensive zone and just trying to launch pucks into the neutral zone, as opposed to that structured style of let's move it along the boards. Let's get things pushed up the ice and just go relentlessly attack on the other side of the ice. Vancouver beat them at what is going to be their own game. And so it's bounce back time. Go set the standard again. Go reset the standard against Edmonton. And in the second of a back-to-back, especially against an Edmonton team that has been rested, is a tricky proposition. But I mean, at this point, it's did we do the things? It's that Venn diagram of did we do the things that we're supposed to do in order to win? If yes, you probably had a good time. If no, you had a miserable time. So it's not that hard. Like the formula is there, and it just needs to be something that they get back to try to get back in the win column tomorrow night. Denny is with us. Denny, oh, captain, my captain, welcome into the postcast. Maroon doesn't click with Dewar and Duhaime. So it's funny because it just seemed like after that first 16 minutes that all the combinations were just off. Just like you're flipping through on the radio dial and you go maybe one turn too far. You can hear the station you're trying to pick up, but it's not coming through crystal clear. There's static. You might hear another station bleeding through. It just seemed like everything was just a dial too off. And so I'm going to be interested to see what Hines comes back with for tomorrow night's game. It better include a new third pair. But beyond that, are we going to see any sort of line tweaks? Or are we going to see a push to getting back to the style that won the first 4 games as opposed to the style that they didn't hit that led to the loss in game 5? So do we see a commitment to the same lineup? Do we see now we get an opportunity to see how the adversity is handled? And if that means that we get more of a push for speed on the fourth line, I'm all for that. But I'm going to leave it up to what Hines decides. and we'll see what he has in store for this team in the game tomorrow night. The hockey gods weren't smiling. They often don't on us here in Minnesota, and the hope is that they will be back to their good graces come tomorrow night. Denny also asking about word on the Super Show. The feelers have been put out, Denny. We'll keep you posted, and we'll see if we can get some good momentum on that going here within like the next week. We'll see if we can get some feelers put out and get some momentum pushed forward for that as we go, because I think it would be a lot of fun. It's a fantastic idea. It needs to happen. And so now it's a matter of just going from it needing to happen to doing what needs to happen to make it happen. So we'll keep you posted. NASCAR Kelly joining us here this evening. Well, this morning, I should say. It is after 1 o'clock now. And she brings up a good point for those that are in the postcast here tonight. Make sure that you drop a like for this video and for any video you may happen to catch on Locked On Wild, because the more likes we get, the more views we get, the more interaction we get, the better chance there is for Locked On Wild to get further put into the algorithm and further seen by more Wild fans. It's just how that whole formula works. And so the more likes, the more interaction, the more people that hop into this channel, the bigger opportunity there is to just continue to grow the audience and to continue to be able to do stuff like this and have fun as we go. So make sure you smash that like button if you haven't already. Clifford Reynolds with us. Teddy Blueger looked like Pavel Bure on that goal. Yeah, that was the other thing about this game tonight, is it just seemed like there were so many odd man rush opportunities for Vancouver, but I think that's because they just did such a good job of doing what the Wild have tried to do and have been successful at through the first four and a third games under John Hines. They just beat them at their own game. And the fact that they continue to quickly push the puck up the ice led to odd man rush opportunities. And thankfully, Filip Gustavsson was on his game to be able to come up with stops, because there were a lot of them. There were a lot of odd man rush opportunities that could have led to far more goals than what we had. I heard your podcast pitch in the second intermission on the SiriusXM broadcast, finally getting the recognition that the show deserves. Yes, we are on SiriusXM, and the podcast is on there, but also, we have partnered with them. You can hear Wild games through the SiriusXM app. And so it's a great partnership that has obviously, as mentioned here, led to more exposure for the show, which is always what we are looking for here as we go. Swiffer T, Wet Jet Mop. Vancouver played a heavy game and blocked a ton of shots and passes, which to my knowledge has never been their game. If they play like that every night on top of their offense, it's a really good team. And look, Rick Tockett's a great coach. He was a great player. And I mentioned it at about the 16-minute mark of the first period that he was going to rain some hellfire down on Vancouver, because they just were getting, at that point, throttled pretty good by the Wild. And it's honestly not as though Vancouver played terribly. They just kind of were on the wrong end of that early slobber knocker. And what did he do? He was able to get them to go back to their style, and Vancouver ended up winning the game. And so blocking shots, a lot of the things that we've seen the Wild do over the last 4+ games, Vancouver just did them better here in this one tonight. And so again, I don't think we need to go to the length of like, let's fire everybody, let's trade everybody. Although I'm still I'm still to the point where we need to see other people for that third pairing because I've had enough there. But it was a situation tonight where the Wild just did not, they weren't able to pull momentum back on their side. Vancouver got the first goal, they got the second goal, and they came away with a win. The show is growing by leaps and bounds. Denny is correct. It seems like we have new people that are hopping in to our postcasts, our episodes, our comment section, every single episode that we do. And that is the sign of a grassroots movement that starts as a little bit of a kindling fire and just continues to grow and to build. And that's where we're at right now. And when that happens, that's where the rocket goes straight to the moon. And the bigger we get, the more fun things we are going to be doing. And so we continue to push upward and upward. We really miss Vinny Lettieri. I would love to see him back up here because Denny, you've been right on the money with this, and I'm in full agreement. I thought he looked great with Duhaime and Dewar. That using that speed, that full capability of speed, and especially in this style that this team is shifting to, with trying to really push the puck up the ice. That's a perfect pairing to be a perfect line combination to be able to just launch the puck up the ice for more chances. The more chances you generate, the more shots you generate, the more goals you generate, and speed helps you with that. So I'm once the third pairing is taken care of, and one of those guys is shown the door, shown the opportunity to go somewhere else, not here, then I think Lettieri deserves to be a call up on the forward side to be with this team throughout the rest of the season. Ladies and gentlemen, Locked On Sharks has made an appearance in the postcast here tonight. And for the Locked On Sharks, it has just been a journey for them so far this season. And now finally seeing the Sharks surpass the Chicago Blackhawks for not dead last in the NHL warms my heart. Although, if you ask JD, any episode that he's done, they are in full-out tank mode, and so there needs to be some order restored to get the Sharks back down to the worst spot in the NHL. But at this point, just nice to get above water for a little bit. Even as a Shark, they breathe underwater, so I don't know why you'd want to be above water, to be frank, but welcome into the show. Just to be miserable with us as we're right back into the losing mentality. And the Sharks did beat the Patrick Kane-led Detroit Red Wings in overtime. So that Patrick Kane debut went great for Detroit. So yeah, hashtag not last. We've talked about it as Wild fans. Like, at some point, you just need to go from having your mentality be, oh, we got to make the playoffs at all costs. We got to get to the playoffs. We got to make the playoffs. Because for anybody that listens to our crossover episode with Locked On Canucks, that was just a still last by points percentage. That was just a fascinating hypothetical that Begsy proposed to me, in that, would you rather be a fan of the Canucks over the last 20 years or the Minnesota Wild? I said Canucks, no questions asked, because of the fact that they have at least gotten to a cup final. Wild have not. And so no matter how many good regular seasons you have, how many seasons you have where you're like, well, hey, we made the playoffs, it's got to count for something, right? I would trade every single season of that for one cup. One. Stanley Cup. I would trade every single season of, hey, we finished above 500. We're in the postseason. Oh no, we lost in the first round. Because that's what it comes down to at the end. And all these teams, it's not the entirety of the rule. All these teams that bottom out, Colorado, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, all these teams that bottom out, they end up getting those players that you can build around. With Colorado, it was McKinnon, it was Cale Makar. With Tampa Bay, it was Andre Vasilevsky and Steven Stamkos. You get those players, and of course, we know who it was with the Penguins, Sidney Crosby, and so many others. You have to, in order to pick up that generational talent, you have to be bad to do it. Just ask Chicago. They were super bad. Now they have Connor Bedard. Although I think there was a little help involved by the league, but that's another story for another day. But the point being is that you have to commit to it in order to be able to get from the absolute bottom to the absolute top. You have to commit to it. No half measures. And we just continue to see like, hey, got to get to the postseason. That book usually ends the same way. It's the Taylor Swift lyrics all over again. I think I've seen this film before and I didn't like the ending. We've seen that for 8 straight seasons or however many it was. Nothing worse than being a team in the creamy middle. Could not be more accurate. And so, this has been kind of a talker for yes, I am tinfoil cap guy on Chicago being given. That's the key phrase difference is being given Connor Bedard. There's tinfoil under this beanie, this extremely sweet beanie. There's tinfoil under here. But like you just, if you're going to really build like a serious run to the postseason, you have to back it up. You got to take it all the way down to the foundations. You got to make sure that the foundations are rock solid. Then you can start to build the walls. Then you can start to build the roof. You can side the house. You can put the windows in, put the doors on. You can finally decorate it and then just enjoy it because it was built the right way, as opposed to trying to cut costs on foundation building and trying to fix things as you go when it turns out the foundation is cracked from the beginning. You have to build it the right way. And until this Minnesota Wild team does that, then I don't know that we'll see a legitimate cup run by this team until they have the stones to be able to say, yep, we need to take it back. We need to step back. We need to do this the right way. And we're right here right now. Just hoping to be able to get back to the postseason, because that's the thing that is going to bring the happiness right now. But again, it's not building towards a legitimate cup run. I don't know. I'm going on a rant here at 1:14 in the morning because save screaming at the third pairing, there wasn't a ton to pull from this game. The Wild didn't execute their formula, and they lost. But again, you had 16 great minutes to start the game, and just could not keep it going after that. So I think what we'll do, it's super late. We got another game coming up tomorrow night against the Edmonton Oilers. I'll have a pregame preview for you for tomorrow. I think that is going to wrap things up here for this one today. I'm going to try a different approach to the pre-games for tomorrow and trying to predict who will fire things up for the Minnesota Wild in this one against Edmonton. And we're going to see, I'll just tell you this. We're going to see Edmonton. And Edmonton being used as a verb here means that they're either going to just get out to an outrageously big lead like they did against the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, good Lord, they led that game 4-0 in the first period. They're either going to do that or they are going to absolutely light themselves on fire and just run up and down the ice to try to put themselves out, and they'll be down 5-0 going into midway through the second. There is no in between for Edmonton. It is chaos either way. And so we'll try to predict how that chaos will reign supreme. But appreciate everybody hopping in here for yet another Locked On Wild postcast. Denny, NASCAR Kelly, Freddie, Jeremy, Locked On Sharks making an appearance here tonight. GA007, Swiffer T, Wetjet Mop, all of the commenters. Clifford joining us here tonight. Everybody that hopped into the comment section and continues to do so on a nightly basis is the reason that I'm sitting here at 116, wanting to hang out and interact even after a snoozer of a 2-0 loss. This is why we do it. And so the formula is simple. We continue to throw the content out there for you. Like it, comment on it, and just continue to vibe with us as we move through the rest of the season. The optimism here is that we scored a touchdown on the Oilers. Yeah, it is bedtime. The Oilers. We scored a touchdown on the Oilers the last time these two teams played. The Wild can certainly do it again. So we will rest, we will rise, and we will rally for yet another game coming up tomorrow for the Minnesota Wild. Make sure in the meantime you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any full episodes. We got Brandon Duham coming back on the show next week. So if you subscribe, if you turn notifications on, you don't miss out on things like that. And just continue to enjoy what we throw at you. And we'll keep it coming here as the season unfolds. You can find new episodes, new postcasts, new pregame previews, all of it for Locked On Wild as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.